Hello everyone, today we're taking a look at the BetaFPV VR02 goggles, and these are kind of starter goggles, or you might consider them ride-along goggles. By ride-along meaning you have your own set of goggles and you hand these to someone else to share this awesome hobby, and they can just stick their face in them. One thing to note about sticking your face in there, if you wear glasses like I do, the glasses are going to have to be real small in order to fit in there. I got my last 3 sets of glasses out, and they're a little bit too wide. I do have a ginormous head, so maybe if you have a more narrow pair of glasses, they might work. And this has a kind of an angled Fresnel lens inside of it. The lens, or the Fresnel lens, kind of magnifies the image. And these things are very short and very compact for a box goggle. And I think that's one kind of aspect that makes them very good ride-along goggles. The other aspect is that the antennas are all internal. So you don't have anything out here you've got to get out of your bag and screw in an SMA antenna or anything like that. Or they won't take any damage coming in and out of your bag. So for ride-along goggles, that's pretty dang nice. They don't have much to them as far as features go. They're very basic goggles. They have a mechanical switch over here. It's an on-off switch. So that should help it not drain the battery when not in use. The mechanical switches, they don't require any power to work. So having that mechanical switch should help save battery life when these are just sitting waiting to be used. Also, right over here we have our USB-C port. That is for charging. And then we have our signal. You long press that and it does a sweep across all the bands, and it goes fast, faster than I've ever seen before. Faster than my rapid fire module. So that's something. And then you have the channel button, so you can select channels individually, and the band as well, so you can manually tune in the channel. There's also a feature to where it shows you kind of a graph in screen, where when you search, it'll show you the strongest channel. Of course, if you're flying with others, you kind of need to know what frequency you're on, so that's where the manual buttons come in handy instead of the auto search. But if you fly by yourself, the auto search seems to lock on pretty good to the channel that you're actually using. I tested it on Raceband 8, which is what I fly most of the time. I also tested, Boss Cam. A couple of different bands and channels I tested it, and it locked on each and every time. So that's a good thing for those that are just getting started out, because we've got all these different bands and channels we can use. So if you fly by yourself and you're just getting started, auto search function should work just fine for you. As far as the fit and finish, oftentimes when we get these goggles, when you squeeze them and you kind of twist them, they creak and they make little noises. These don't really do that. They're pretty solid construction, it seems like. At least this pair is. And the foam faceplate that they do have in here, that is stuck on there. It's not stuck with Velcro, so if you need to replace this, say, after a few months of sweaty flying, you're going to have to peel that off, get another one, and stick it back on. It doesn't peel off real easily like we see in more expensive goggles that have a Velcro backing to them. And as far as the fit, it does hit my nose, give you a little profile of my nose. So if I put these on my face, forgot to take my glasses off, got to do that. So if I'm not really pressing very hard on my face, and I tried this once and it worked, hopefully again, so you'll see exactly where it hits on my face. Take them off. I should have a little line about right there. So it doesn't sit on your nose, but the nose gap isn't going to be universally fit for you depending upon your nose. Of course, we can always put a little piece of material down here that's nice and soft and feels good. Or you could take a Dremel and kind of ground that edge down a little bit, give yourself another couple of millimeters of space for your schnoz to go right through it. But as far as the fit goes, that's the one thing I noticed, is that it does sit on, kind of creases the bridge of my nose. Hopefully that came through in video. I know this camera tends to smooth out skin tones and stuff, so you might not have seen that. What I've got coming up for you is 3 different flights. Everybody wants to see a flight. So the first flight is indoor. I'm flying a Mobula 6 and a Mobula 7 frame. I've done a video on that several times. So you get to see the reception in the house. This does not have a DVR, which is one thing I wish it had, but I think that puts the price point, above that $50 marker. I think they were really going for that starter sort of goggle. And so what I've done is I've just stuck a camera in here to try to record the image. And because the way the lens and the Fresnel and the screen sits in there, you can't quite see it all. I've done what I could to kind of manipulate that. And then I've got an outside flight, which you'll see a reflection. I unfortunately got some sunlight in there, and you'll see the reflection of the cell phone I'm using to record the screen. I wouldn't base the outside flight on if you're looking at the LCD screen, and it is LCD, as far as its quality. Because I've got that reflection in there. These are mainly to show you the reception, because without any antennas, that can be a point where you're going, well, how good can the reception be? Of course, I don't fly far away, and if you are flying at range, it's best to point the antennas that are internal in the direction that you're flying. That's going to get you the best reception. And then the last flight is me actually wearing them, which is a little bit comical because, I'm used to flying with much more expensive goggles that have a much different field of view. And this is my very first flight that I show you of me wearing the goggles and making some passes in the house. Lots of crashes, but we're going to play it all the way through just for full disclosure on that. I don't want to hide anything from you or think I'm being deceptive, so we're going to play the crashes in all its glory all the way through that first flight. And you get to see me with them, and you see me whiz by. Of course, when I have two screens. I'll have the screen that I'm recording on top, and then at the bottom, I'll have the DVR from my Orca goggles. Now, this isn't a comparison. This is to give you some sort of measurement on how good the reception is, at least in my spaces. So just to give you a wrap up of what you're going to be seeing on the lower portion of the screen is essentially $500 goggles, $150 module, and about $45 worth of antennas. So the antennas alone cost as much as these goggles. Keep that in mind. Here we go. We're rolling right into some indoor footage here. So I fly Raceband 8, and you might not get reception like this in your home or whatever indoor facility you might be flying in. Indoor reception has a lot of variables. The construction, is it metal? Aluminum studs exist inside of houses too. Do you have some sort of stucco or cement? The layout, your position within the area also depends heavily. If I move around, like if I sit on the couch in the living room, and then when I fly downstairs, it gets almost unusable. So I sit at the kitchen table because I found that spot gives me the best possible reception. And it's pretty comfortable as well. But so this gives you a comparison of what the reception's like compared again to those Orca goggles with the rapid fire module and those antennas inside. But you may not get this good of reception in your space is what I'm trying to tell you. Hopefully it helps in some way, but this is not some sort of guarantee that your reception will be the same as mine. Even outside, it's not going to necessarily be the same. Maybe you have a cell tower near your house, or somebody has got some sort of RF that they're blasting out of their home or what have you. There's all sorts of variables to that. The best recommendation I can give you is, like I do, fly Raceband 8. That gets you up above Wi-Fi. You can turn your Wi-Fi off if you find that the reception is better. Of course, if you live with others who might be using the Wi-Fi while you're flying, that would be a pretty unpopular thing. But so fly Raceband 8, change your position, find your position within your flying environment that is going to give you the best possible reception. Something I didn't mention, if I fly from the basement, like where I make these videos, and I fly upstairs, when I'm in the dining room area, it's very difficult to make out where you're at up there. It's almost unflyable if I'm sitting in the basement. So this kitchen table, it gives me really good reception all over the house. I think that's enough of this indoor footage. We've seen it on all three levels. I actually went upstairs. I don't generally fly upstairs all that much. There's just not a good flight path. I go up there from time to time. Maybe I'm chasing a kid, or I'm trying to do some sort of maneuver over the stair railing and down the stairs and through the doorways, which I've kind of gotten a few times. If you guys remember, I think it was the A65 from iFlight. I did a bunch of those, kind of testing the durability because I crashed so much. But let's go ahead. Let's move on to the outside flight before we get on to me actually flying with the goggles on. So unfortunately, yeah, like I said, you can see the reflection of the camera, so definitely don't grade the screen based upon this. You probably want to do more of a grading the screen the LCD screen that is on the inside flight. But this is just for reception purposes, so you can get a feel for what sort of reception to expect, especially out of goggles that don't have any antennas sticking outside of the case. Yeah, and we're going to go around the front of the house. We're going to go around in the front of the house both ways. So the construction of the house does have brick on the front. It also uses a cement siding on it as well. I think it's about 3/4 of an inch thick. And, you know, we've got plenty of trees. So you get some sort of vegetation sample as well as far as the reception goes. I also have a tendency to kind of chin down or nose down when I'm wearing goggles. It doesn't matter what set of goggles I'm wearing. I do tend to have a tendency to drop my chin. So in this particular case with this VR02 goggles, it would be best to be able to keep your head up, as it is in most cases, and point the face of the goggle or the front of the goggle in the direction that you're flying. Of course, with me doing the circular pattern, that's not really all that important. But even with my chin down, you can see it's definitely passable around the front of the house. And you get pretty good reception all throughout the yard. And you can see there that I am flying, once again, the Petrol 120X from HGLRC, but I have a much lower camera angle than I did in my review. This was a much less aggressive flight, so you could see the reception. And if any of this is going too fast, you can always go down to the gear in the YouTube player and slow it down, so you can really do kind of a side-by-side sort of comparison of the reception. Again, you know, we're comparing something that's well over $600 versus something that's $50. And most of us that have been around a while, we got started on box goggles. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't get started on box goggles. Matter of fact, for a lot of our friends out there, you know, put your comment down below about what you started on with goggles. You know, most of us don't jump in the hobby by spending $500 on goggles. You don't know. Maybe you have motion sickness and you know, you can't overcome that. I think a good many of us experienced motion sickness our first, you know, several weeks, maybe month or more. But getting into something new and spending high dollars on it isn't something that most of us have done. And it is an adjustment, you'll see coming up here in a moment. It is a big adjustment for me to fly the very wide field of view of a box goggle again. And I show you my first flight, it's back inside, which is a tougher environment to fly because there's less margin for error when you're flying inside, and so I'm going to have all sorts of crashes. But I think we've been around the house a few times. We did the punch out in order to kind of get you that vertical sort of reception, and we can jump to that footage on the inside because I do want to show it all to you just to make sure I have covered all my bases. All right, so you see I'm wearing the goggles, got them on my noggin, and got them in the house. Got a red shirt on too, if anybody cares. I'm flying a Mobula 6 inside a Mobula 7 frame. I did a video on that. I think I called it the Ultimo Mobula or a Mobula Pro 1S or something like that. That was a fairly popular video. I think it got 15 or so thousand views on that. And a lot of people have made that conversion. It basically, if you have a Mobula 6 or a 65mm whoop, you can swap it out to a 75mm frame, run 40mm props. I didn't even change the tune on mine. And you get more flight time. Of course, you can use a larger battery. And it also, I think it just flies better. It's much easier to be smooth with a larger platform. It's also more stable with a larger platform. Flying a 65mm quad is fairly challenging. What we already seen, we're going to have a few crashes along the way, but I want to show this all to you just kind of as a reminder, kind of harkens back for me again of the process of getting started. Now, if I had spent, you know, 5 or 6 more flights, I think I would make that adjustment. That's one thing that I always find fairly amazing is that we can adjust to differences, whether it's radio sizes, you know, these things that are personal, goggles. We might feel more confident with one thing or another, or we might feel more comfortable with one thing or another, but eventually we can adjust to where we can fly effectively if we give it a chance. But I wanted to show you the worst possible scenario for me flying these goggles in my first flight. And I have some stretches where I'm doing all right. You know, my vision isn't perfect. I think if you are looking at these and you have corrective vision, if you have to wear glasses, it's probably not a good candidate. If you have contact lenses, you'll probably be fine. If you have 20/20 vision, you'll be fine. My vision is not that far off, so I found that the image within the goggles is okay. And I don't wear contacts or anything when I put my other goggles on. I don't require glasses when I'm looking at things up close. Like if I'm reading or looking at my phone, I usually take my glasses off because I can see better. And I think I mentioned it previously, but I do think DVR would have been a nice addition to this, and not so much so that you can record your flights and share them. That's a perk. But if you're getting started flying, you're going to go down a lot. You're going to crash a lot, and having that DVR, especially outside, if you're in a big open field, having that DVR would allow you to play it back and make it a lot easier to find your quad or give you a better idea of where you went down. But you're looking at a price point of $50. So I think to come in at that price point, they probably would have had to raise the price with a DVR, you know, a $10, $12, $15, something like that. I don't actually know what it costs, DVRs. When we buy a DVR, like when I do camera reviews, I've got a DVR board that sits on the quad. They're around $20 as far as retail price. And then if we buy a DVR that we can attach to a set of goggles, I think it was the eSheen 100s, came out with a separate DVR you could connect to those goggles. I think those were, you know, $20 to $30. So, you know, that's got a cost associated to that feature. You're going to have to decide what features you can't live without versus what your budget is. Of course, as I said previously, if you're getting started, you're oftentimes looking to get started on a budget because your budget is king. You know, this hobby is expensive and you are going to break things. You are going to break quads. You're going to break props. You're going to break frames. Hopefully you don't break your goggles or break your radio, but I've seen enough people drop things or post pictures online of broken switches on radios or various things that we're pretty rough in this hobby, it seems like. So your budget getting started you're going to need to have a little surplus so you can buy those things so you can keep flying. Whether it's something cheap and regular like props or something much more expensive like an entire quad or goggles or a radio or whatever. So we've only got a few moments here left in this flight, and you can see I kind of pick up the pace. I start getting more confident and comfortable. Again, first flight, first try of actually being in the goggles. And I show you this because a lot of people like to know, did you just test them or did you actually use them? And I think that provides a little bit of a value in a review format of, you know, is something worth buying or not? So that was a lot of flight footage. If you've made it all the way to the end, thank you very much. And something that I'm told repeatedly I need to be doing is make sure you hit the thumbs up. Or I guess you can hit the thumbs down. They say engagement is engagement. And there's a subscribe button down there as well. Maybe hit that subscribe button. Hopefully I'll have content coming up on the channel that you might enjoy. And what do you think of the goggles? One of the things I really like as far as a starter set of goggles is the fact that there is no external pieces that you're going to break off. So if you pack to fly, this is pretty handy. Or if you pack to fly or you fly in places where other people come along, ride-along goggles possibly. There are other opportunities to share flights without having to put them in the goggles. Things like little screens, like the HawkEye Little Pilot. These come in a couple of different flavors. It's actually got a little screw attachment down here to where you can actually, there's a print file available to attach to your jumper T-Light radio, or something like this. This comes in all sorts of different varieties. I'll find a couple of these and I'll link them down in the video description down below. These are all also good opportunities to share with other people for ride-along purposes. And I'll also have a link down below to the VR02 goggles. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in that section down below. I appreciate your time. Thanks for watching.